This presentation will discuss security procedures for testing, including the PARCC test, NJ-ASK, and access tests. Allowable breaks during testing. For the PARCC test, students are allowed 1 3-minute break per session. This is a stretch-only type break, and students are not allowed to talk or leave the room during the break. Students with an IEP or a 504 plan who have the accommodation for more frequent breaks will be allowed to have breaks as needed. During the break time, if a student is using a desktop computer, please have them shut off their screen, and if they're using a Chromebook, have them cover the screen with the folder. Please discourage bathroom breaks during testing. Prior to beginning the test period, allow students to use the bathroom as needed. If, however, a student has an emergency and needs to use the bathroom during testing, the student should be escorted back and forth to the bathroom by security personnel, and only one person at a time should be allowed in the bathroom. Since you will be timing the test, the amount of break time should be added to the session time. If you have a 3-minute break, add the 3 minutes to the end of the test for the entire class. If an individual student leaves to go to the bathroom and they are missing 10 minutes of the test, that additional 10 minutes should be added to their time only. So the regular class might be 53 minutes from the start time, but that child will be 53 minutes plus the additional 10 minutes that he or she took for the bathroom break. Clarification of test security procedures. You will be given 2 security agreements to read and review. The first will be a 2014-2015 PARCC Assessment Security Agreement. The second will be an additional West New York Security Agreement. Both agreements must be read, reviewed, and signed and given to your administrators. You will also be given a copy of the agreement via email so that you can review it and use it as reference as needed. The 2014-2015 PARCC Assessment Security Agreement contains sections for school test coordinators, technology coordinators, test administrators, proctors, and authorized observers, and for test administrators and proctors. I will read parts that pertain to test administrators and proctors. I will not view test content or student responses except if necessary to administer certain accommodations. I will not reproduce test content or student responses in any way. Example, photographing, copying by hand, typing, texting from a cell phone, or photocopying. I will not reveal or discuss test content or student responses before, during, or after testing. I will not engage in any activity that adversely affects the validity, security, or fairness of the test. I will promptly report any testing irregularities or concern as specified in the Test Coordinator's Manual or the Test Administrator Manual. I will follow the procedures as specified in the manuals regarding the disposition of all test materials. I will complete training necessary to understand PARCC test security and administration policies and procedures. I will keep test materials under my supervision at all times, and I will not leave them unattended. I will prepare the testing room so that no student can view another student's test materials or computer screen, and so that inappropriate visual aids are removed or covered before testing. I will supervise the students at all times and focus my attention on the testing environment and not allow students to talk, pass notes, cause disturbances, or communicate with each other in any way during testing, not allow students to access cell phones or other unapproved electronic devices during testing, not allow students to access notes, books, or any instructional materials during testing, Ensure that students provide answers that are strictly their own and do not participate in any form of cheating. Not coach students in any way or do anything to enhance, alter, or interfere with their responses. I will follow the chain of custody procedures for all test materials, including scratch paper, as specified in the manual and by my school test coordinator. Some testing accommodations require a test administrator to view, read, or transcribe test content or student responses. If I am administering such an accommodation, I will not disclose any test content that I view in the course of providing the accommodation. I will follow all security policies and test administration protocols as described in the Test Administrator Manual. I have read the PARCC Security Agreement and understand my role in this test administration. You will then sign the agreement and give it to your school administrator. A copy will be emailed to you electronically for your review and reference. West New York Security Agreement. All staff involved in testing, including test coordinators, test administrators, proctors, hall security monitors, and technology staff, should read and review the following checklist along with the PARCC agreement and return it to the school test coordinator prior to the administration to maintain security at testing sites. Number 1. The district security plan must be reviewed by all staff members involved in the test administration and be available for reference. Number 2. Examiners, proctors, and other personnel are not to copy, take a photo, read, discuss, or disclose any parts of the test before, during, or after the test administration through verbal exchange, email, social media, or any other form of communication. Number 3. Test examiner circulates around the room during testing to ensure proper security procedures are followed and to ensure that students are working independently and in the correct section. Number 4. Test examiners must remain attentive at all times. Activities such as sitting at their desk, marking students' work, viewing the computer other than the Pearson site, using other electronic devices, or completing their plan books distract the examiner's attention and can constitute a breach of security. Number 5. Only examiners who sign for secure materials may handle those materials. Number 6. Disallowed activities include, but are not limited to, reading, viewing, explaining passages or test items, giving cues, hints, suggestions, paraphrasing, defining the test, leaving students unattended while testing or while secured materials are distributed, providing more or less time, IEP 504 LEP accommodations apply, encouraging students to finish early, allows access to unauthorized personnel, formally or informally scoring student responses, leaving students or test materials unattended, unsecure, altering, interfering with student responses. Number 7, no access to cell phones is permitted. All cell phones must be turned off, including those of the examiners and hall security personnel. No individuals that have a cell phone in their possession, except for the district test coordinator, the school test coordinator, and the technology coordinator and his staff. Number 8, appropriate grade level calculators must be used, memories and programs must be cleared, and instructional material function reference sheets must be removed. Number 9, Follow the general rule that if a material in question may help a student find an answer to a question, post or copy materials, it is not allowed in the testing environment. This agreement should be signed and given to your administrator. A copy will be emailed to you electronically for review and reference. The district has created a district and school security plan. This security plan will be emailed to you in its entirety so that you may review it and use it as reference. Certain sections of the plans will be outlined to you in upcoming slides. The security plan details procedures to be followed if there are missing tests or missing secured materials. If this were to happen, stop testing immediately and note the time that testing was stopped. Do not dismiss any students from your session. Using the extension phone in your classroom, call the hotline number and request that the school test coordinator immediately come to your classroom. He or she will notify the district test coordinator. The security plan details procedures to be followed when a child becomes ill during testing. If this should happen in your classroom, stop testing for the student who becomes ill and note the time that testing was stopped. If the incident is disruptive and will disrupt the testing for the entire class should stop testing, and again the time should be noted. Using the extension phone in your classroom, call the hotline and request that the nurse be sent to your classroom. The nurse will remove the sick child, and then testing can be resumed for the other students in the class, adding the appropriate time that was lost to the end of the test. The security plan details procedures to be followed when a student is disruptive. If this were to happen in your session, stop the testing for that student or for the entire class if it is disruptive enough that is interfering with the testing of the other students. Note the time that the test was stopped. Using the extension in your classroom, dial the hotline number and request that the school test coordinator come to your classroom. The disruptive child will be removed, and the rest of the students can continue testing with the missed time added to the end of the test. The security plan also details procedures to be followed in the event of an emergency. No practice drills will be scheduled during testing. In order for students to react appropriately, they need to be aware of what procedures to follow in the event that an emergency situation occurs. Please discuss all these procedures prior to the beginning of testing. Your safety and the safety of the students is our first priority. In the event that there is no imminent danger, please follow the procedures below. These include making sure the students do not talk at any time during the emergency procedure, stopping testing and noting the time that testing was stopped, telling students to shut off their screen if using a desktop computer, or covering the screen with a folder if using a Chromebook, having the students place the secured materials in the folder as they line up to leave or as they shelter in place. The teacher should keep all secured materials in his or her possession at all times. And once the emergency is over, wait for approval to resume testing using the missed time calculations to extend testing time. The security plan also discusses procedures for you to follow if you have a problem with technology. If this should occur for an individual student or for the class as a whole, note the time that the interruption occurred. Using your user guide, attempt to resolve the issue on your own and resume the students. If you cannot resolve the issue on your own, use your classroom extension phone to call the hotline number and request that a technician or someone with technical ability come to your classroom. The security plan includes examples of breaches of test security. These are examples only and not comprehensive. Examples include available use of a cell phone or other prohibited handheld electronic device, with the exception of test coordinators, technology coordinators, or the district test coordinator. Individuals taking photos of test nav screens. Using a computer, laptop, or tablet other than the one being used to administer a computer-based test while secure test materials are still distributed or while students are testing. Explaining passages or test items to students. Coaching students during testing, including giving students verbal or nonverbal cues, hints, suggestions, or paraphrasing or defining any part of the test. Engaging activities that prevent proper student supervision at all times while secure test materials are still distributed or while students are testing. Example, grading papers, reading a book, newspaper, or magazine. Leaving students unattended for any period of time while secure test materials are still distributed or while students are testing. Giving students more or less time than is allotted for the unit as outlined in the manual, except for students who have an extended time accommodation specified in an approved IEP 504 plan or English language learners. Encouraging students to finish early. Allowing students to pass notes, talk, or cause disturbances while test materials are still distributed or while students are testing. Providing unauthorized persons with access to secure materials. Formally or informally scoring student responses to test items. Allowing students to test before or after your state's test administration window. Leaving test materials unattended or failing to keep test materials secure at all times while secure materials are still distributed or while students are testing. Viewing or permitting students to view secure test content at any time other than during testing. Reading or viewing the passages or test items before, during, or after testing. Copying or reproducing, example, taking a picture of, any part of the passage or test items or any secure materials or online test forms. Altering or interfering with a student's responses in any way. Making responses available to a student. Handling the test materials for the purpose other than the test administration. Example, teacher takes a test booklet home to review. Test administrator reads a student's responses after school. Revealing or discussing passages or test items with anyone, including students and school staff, through verbal exchange, email, social media, or any other form of communication. Removing secure materials from the school's campus or removing them from a locked storage facility for a purpose other than administering the test. Displaying instructional materials that provide students with information. These are examples only and not a comprehensive list. If you have a question regarding a procedure, please discuss it with your test coordinator. Calculator usage. Students in grades 3 to 5 who are general ed students will not be using calculators for the PARCC test. However, students with accommodations at these grades may use them. Students in grades 6 and up will have an online calculator available during calculator-enabled parts of the test. If they prefer, they may use a handheld calculator if that is the one that they are more comfortable with and that they use daily in class. Calculators must be approved for the grade level of the students using them, and if they're using a handheld calculator, memories must be cleared and any reference sheets must be removed from the calculators. Special ed or 504 students may use calculators during non-calculator portions of the test if it appears in their IEP plan or their 504 plan. In order for them to use these calculators, however, they must be using a handheld calculator. The system will not make the calculator available even with this accommodation listed in their PNP during the non-calculator parts of the test. Therefore, students who have the calculator usage accommodation must be given a handheld calculator to use throughout the test. Additional information. Examiner roles versus the role of a proctor. An examiner or test administrator must be employed by the district as a teacher or other certified educational professional. An examiner test administrator may give the test to students and handle secured materials. A proctor, on the other hand, is there to help the test administrator or examiner monitor the sessions, but not to administer the test. A proctor cannot be left alone in the classroom while students are testing or while secured materials are in the room. A proctor may not handle secure test materials. Chain of custody. A chain of custody form will be signed daily as secured materials are moved from the testing room to the testing site and then back to the secure testing room. Each morning, you will be asked to count and then sign for the secured materials that you are receiving. When you finish administering the test and return these materials to the testing room, your test coordinator, who is your building administrator, will recount the materials and sign that they have received them. Instructional displays must be covered or removed in the testing room or in the hallways. If you are uncertain about whether or not something is instructional, it's better to cover it rather than to risk a breach of security.